Ready to roll. Get ready to turn left. Turn left.
All right, good evening, folks. This is John Tapp with the Freightliner Cascadia, fifth generation for this late July week, which is the end of that. Uh, we're gonna start with Oregon for red onions, which called the delis. So anyway, so let's go for a ride.
Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. It's all over now. Let's do this. Okay, let's find a new route.
Vance is defending Trump making billions of dollars. Vance has said Trump is being persecuted for that.
Yeah, and as you might imagine, Democrats are all over this. They have this idea of a future Democratic majority after November in which they would investigate the president. That's especially true for folks like top House Judiciary Democrat Jamie Raskin of Maryland. I spoke to him back in May.
Watergate was like a Cub Scout prank compared to what we're living through. I mean, we've seen the entire government just saturated with corruption.
So Raskin is saying that modern-day politics is worse than Watergate. But Mara and Eric, how does using Watergate as a comparison or analogy at all hold up?
Well, if you listen to people who follow this, like Michael Waldman at the Brennan Center, they look back to those times in history where there were huge scandals, and after that, Congress took things that had merely been norms or voluntary choices, and they codified them into laws. Here's Michael Waldman.
Teddy Roosevelt and the Progressive Era reforms came after the corruption of the Gilded Age. After Watergate came a wave of protections and reforms in the 1970s. It's now a half century later. The corruption is growing, the abuse is growing, and it's time for another reform moment.
And we're now at a time when most of those post-Watergate laws have been overturned or otherwise stripped away.
Eric, you are inside the Capitol nearly every day. How often are you hearing about actual policy plans to address some of this?
Straight on.
Democrats talk about it all the time. It feels like every other day there's a new email in my inbox announcing an anti-corruption initiative. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, top Democrat in the Senate, he announced one just last week. But these proposals, the substance of them, the legislation has been around a while. A full ban on stock trading and ownership by Congress and members of the executive branch, an end to former lawmakers becoming lobbyists, a binding ethics code for the Supreme Court, perhaps other judicial reforms, and even a constitutional amendment to tackle campaign finance reform.
None of that would affect Trump, of course. This is a job for a future Congress, not controlled by the president's own party.
Right. Obviously, Trump still would have the power of the veto. Republicans, I should say, also talk about tackling corruption, but they tend to focus instead on waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. House Republicans this Congress have investigated, for instance, alleged abuses in social safety net programs.
But as you've just indicated, for Democrats to do what they're proposing, they would have to win. So how much of an effort, Eric, are they making to sell this to voters?
Well, remember I said at the top, voters think about corruption as a systemic issue. It's not about Trump for most people, and so Democrats are trying to create an anti-corruption case beyond Trump. Here's Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. He's running for re-election. He talked about it in a rally in June.
Corruption in America runs a lot deeper than Donald Trump. American politics is coin operated. Money goes in, favors come out.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Democrats are trying to make this a political issue. They are arguing that ordinary people have to pay more for groceries and gas, while Donald Trump is making billions for himself and his wealthy friends.
That is NPR's Mara Liasson and Eric McDaniel. Thanks to both of you for this reporting.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much.
In all of Congress, there are just 3 independents, 2 in the Senate and 1 in the House, and it's a tall order for independents to get elected. They're locked out of the big fundraising and infrastructure resources that come with the 2 main political parties, but there's an effort underway being led by former Senator Joe Manchin to help close that gap and bring more independents to Capitol Hill. NPR's Barbara Sprung reports.
And then exit right.
I hop into a forest green shuttle here at the historic Greenbrier in West Virginia, leaving behind the massive bright white building and heading down a windy road.
Next stop, Harrods Creek Tavern.
The Greenbrier is made up of 11,000 acres and is home to a Cold War era bunker designed to house every member of Congress in the event of a nuclear attack.
We haven't had the worst happen as was envisioned by the bunker, but I think that many of the fears of our founders about the horror of a deeply entrenched 2-party system have come to pass.
That's Congressman Kevin Kiley, the only independent serving in the House. I ask him if it gets...
Oh, ride that bridge to the morning light.
you don't just run a museum. I was just there recently because my son graduated from the University of Chicago, and what an extraordinary event. Everyone
Finding
that worked there
a new
could
route.
not have been more incredible. But I, as a Chicago girl, was walking around the submarine and remembering when we had to go outside, walk the plank to get to it, and have that big, beautiful building around it is extraordinary. But some people are going to hear Anne Frank at the Museum of Science and Industry and think, why there? Explain to folks why this belongs under the roof of the Museum of Science and Industry.
Well, first of all, we try to bring exhibits that people would not otherwise be able to see. Not many people will be able to go to Amsterdam to see this. And so bringing experiences like that to the museum will open their eyes and give them opportunities to see and really hear about Anne's story and other experiences that would not be possible to visit. The second piece is we have the largest school field trip attendance of any cultural institution in the Midwest. And so we see young people running around trying to really make sense of the world around them. And, with social media and all the things that are happening, they're being exposed to so much. I'll give you a personal story. My grandson, who's 6 years old, had a project called Love Is. And Love is normally mommy, daddy, family, brothers, sisters, grandparents, etc. He wrote, Love is helping my country. And if we think our children aren't experiencing and trying to figure out why these things are happening in the world around them and being able to make sense of it, this is so important for them to understand history so that it doesn't repeat itself.
Absolutely. And I understand that you're offering free entry as well to this exhibit for field trip groups from anywhere in the country. You mentioned that it's the number one in the Midwest. So that's not a small thing for any field trip. And by the way, how spectacular to bring classes here. Talk to us about that decision and what teachers have been telling you since May, because I'll be honest with you, teachers in a lot of states right now are getting told what they can and can't put in front of a classroom.
Having the opportunity and being free, we are so fortunate to have very generous benefactors that are helping us to provide free admission to every school group in the Midwest to come to this exhibition. In addition, after they enter the exhibition, they will receive their own diary so that they can write and reflect on how they make sense of the world around them. In addition, we are also providing scholarships for buses so that there is no barrier to learning and understanding Anne's story.
How do folks reach out in case someone's listening and maybe, we kind of assume that, well, if this program's out there, folks will find it, and yet even with all the technology at our fingertips, things fall through the cracks. Well, how do people reach out if they're interested in organizing a field trip?
If you want to learn more, please go to our website at griffinmsi.org. Again, that's griffinmsi.org.
And can I just spatially, I'm trying to imagine, where is the exhibit? Is it on the main floor for Anne Frank?
It actually is on the main floor, and it's actually right next to our coal mine exhibit.
Okay, I got you then. From near the street of yesterday. Although, is the ice cream parlor still there? We should get that. We're talking about
I know, the ice cream parlor isn't there, but yesterday's Main Street is still here, and we actually just added Powering the Future, an energy gallery on our second floor, and we have the ComEd Coil, which is a 33-foot tall slide that you'll be able to learn about kinetic energy.
Oh my! It really is. There's when you say something for everybody, it sounds like such a generic thing, but really, having gone there since I was a child, since I was about 3 years old, and then raising my boys who are now 20 and 22, I'm so proud to live in a city that has the foresight, perspective to say Anne Frank belongs at our museum. Tell us a little bit about that process. Was this something that was collaborated? Like, how did this get initiated?
We have an incredible team that actually looks for experiences that our audiences it would be difficult to see outside of our museum. And so they found this exhibition that was in a Jewish cultural center. The Anne Frank House designed it for this Jewish cultural center in New York, and they said, we've got to go see this. We went to see it, and we actually said we have to bring this into a large museum setting because we want to make sure that everyone learns about Anne's story.
I think it's incredible as well that the idea of giving everyone a journal, all the children a journal, because I think that Anne Frank's story reminds us that, Anne goes through so much. She's in puberty, she has a crush. All the things that a teenage girl or a child, any kid, any human being might be, what they want, what they're afraid of. I think is really important that you're handing those out and encouraging folks to share their story, to be a part of it. We're all part of history, and remembering Anne Frank is crucial in how we move forward. What are some of the things that you're hearing from the people that work at the museum and putting this together? Because it has to be so emotional for some folks too. It takes a lot out of you as well as it puts into you, doesn't it?
It does. I'm hearing a lot of thank yous. I'm hearing a lot of, I didn't really understand what I read until I experienced it. I'm hearing about, how can we do things to change what we're seeing today. It's creating a lot of agency in people that visit, where they want to go out and try to improve this world. And I think it's a lot of inspiration, a lot of resilience, a lot of hope. And, hope gets us through everything.
It really does. Okay, we've been talking to Dr. Chevy Humphrey, who is president and CEO of the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry. Let folks know this is running through. When does this open specifically?
It's open now.
Okay.
It's open until January 2027.
Oh, great. So people have some time, but don't don't hear January and think, oh, I've got plenty of time to get there. I think that when you have the opportunity, please do. And I'm so excited that you have shared this story with us. Amsterdam preserved the actual annex, but the rooms there are empty. Otto Frank wanted it that way, and you furnished this one. So when a kid from anywhere in the country walks out of this, aside from knowing that they are important, that this could happen to anybody, to let folks know what they can get from this room that you've mentioned. I know the energy of it, but that rather than standing in the empty room that Otto Frank wanted to preserve.
I think you're going to find humanity prevails, being kind to others, and being resilient, and during the darkest times, hope will always prevail.
Absolutely. And especially in a time like this, we need so much of that. Again, the Anne Frank, the exhibition is at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, 5700 South DeSable Lakeshore Drive, running, as the doctor mentioned, through January of 2027. Tickets and field trip info at griffinmsi.org. If you're a teacher, the field trip entry is free. If you're a parent, take your kid who perhaps has never heard of Anne Frank or has,
I'll find
and this
a new
is a way to really be immersed into this experience. If you want to know what the fight over history looks like where you live, go to your next school board meeting, and that's what's on the shelves. Because there are places that perhaps won't let children read the Anne Frank diary. Dr. Humphrey, thank you to you and everyone at the Museum of Science and Industry for the extraordinary work that you do. Before we go, I do have to ask you, I know that you've got some time crunch. What is it like to walk into that building as a job? Because I think everyone listening is so jealous.
It is the best experience. I am so humbled and honored to be a steward in this organization. Over the decades, so many lives have been changed and inspired by this museum.
Okay.
And every day I walk in, I'm joyful, and I know I've got to roll up my sleeves and get it done.
Well, it certainly shows, and again, on behalf of my family, at the very least, thank you to you and everyone for the great work that you do. In particular, so proud that the Anne Frank experiences come to the Museum of Science and Industry. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to talking to you again. If any developments, announcements, exhibits you want to share with us, we'd love to have you back.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful day as well.
Absolutely. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150, KTNF AM 950.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update. This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
WCPT replay.
We have Maria on the line from Chicago.
I'm so impressed with how you and everybody on WCPT are able to stay sane with all the chaotic nonsense that comes out of
and produce here.
That's because tariffs on imports diminish the competitive advantage of using lower-cost labor in places like Mexico or Malaysia.
Did a solo show of her work in 2019.
All her life, Betty dismantled racist imagery, transforming it into monument of black empowerment, resilience and resistance.
Betty Saar was born in 1926 in Los Angeles. Her father died when she was 5. It was on the many visits to see her grandmother in the Watts neighborhood that Saar told NPR she first encountered real art. She looked on as the artist Simon Radier assembled his monumental set of sculptures, the Watts Towers.
Shards of ceramics and plates. I've seen corn cobs in there. I've seen tools. I think that was the beginning of my becoming an assemblyist or recycler.
Around the time of her 80th birthday 20 years ago, Saar told NPR she stopped thinking of the milestone as a big deal after seeing a spry 104-year-old woman in a TV commercial.
And I'm saying, now that's a cool lady.
Betty Saar said she liked to live in the present. She continued to create art in her home studio well into her 90s. Chloe Veltman, NPR News.
It's coming up on 6:29, and you've been listening to All Things Considered on CD 7. We're a minute away from Marketplace, but first out on the roads, North Sam westbound, we've got a wreck at the toll plaza approaching 249, taking up the left easy tag lane. And the big rig wreck shutting down the frontage. Southbound 45 also at the North Sam is still with us. Support comes from members like you and from Belmont Village Senior Living. Committed to enriching the lives of seniors through hospitality, engaging programs, and custom care that evolve with changing needs. Serving Houston West University and Hunters Creek. More information at belmontvillage.com/Houston. And from the Baylor College of Medicine, 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science. It'll be clear overnight with a low around 79, and tomorrow through Sunday we'll have sunny days with highs around 100, overnight lows around 80, and the next chance of rain in the forecast is about a 20% creeping in Saturday night and Sunday. Right now it's 92, heat index 103 here at the UH campus at 6:30.
Marketplace is supported by Viking, exploring the world in comfort. With a fleet of small ships, Viking offers travel experiences for the thinking person. Discover more at Viking.com.
On the program today, a little of this, a little of that, some data, some AI, and the fan. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Odoo.com, offering integrated programs for sales, customer relationship management, inventory, and other business operations, designed to work together as a customizable software suite. Odoo, all your business on one platform.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kyle Risdall. Tuesday, 28th July. Good as it always is to have you along, everybody. We got the June trade gap today, specifically the difference in our goods trade, how much stuff we bought from overseas versus what we sell there. It shrank about 4% from May, but shrank is a relative term because we are still importing hundreds of billions of dollars more stuff than we export, despite President Trump's tariffs, some old, some new, that he has said bring the trade gap down. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes has more.
Before we talk about the June trade deficit, you should know that American companies imported a lot earlier this year after the U.S. attacked Iran, says nationwide economist Oren Klatchkin.
Anytime we get hit with some kind of unexpected shock, companies' first reaction basically is to go out and raise their, stockpiles.
And in June, those companies were like, we are good, causing imports to fall and the trade deficit to narrow. Still, there are some U.S. industries that just can't get enough imports. I'm looking at UTech sector. It needs computer chips from Asia.
Spending on artificial intelligence continues to trend at a really solid pace. This type of investment basically looks past the conflict and past tariffs and anything else.
The waves of tariffs have affected trade, specifically who we are trading with, says UBS economist Jonathan Pingle.
You've certainly seen a drop-off in imports from China as the China tariffs were increased, and there have been beneficiaries in other parts of Asia, Southeast Asia.
And even if
of sign-off, right? So these things play out over a long period of time.
Also, a trade deficit isn't necessarily a bad thing, says Ryan Monarch, an economics professor at Syracuse.
If you have a trade deficit, another way of saying that is that your country is a place in which a lot of other countries really want to invest, where they want to put their money into.
They give us stuff, we give them American dollars, and that's a sign they believe in the U.S. economy. I'm Stephanie Hughes from Marketplace.
Wall Street on this Tuesday, the 30 stocks that make up the Dow Industrials did just fine. Chip makers, not so much. Oil down another 4% or so. Details numbers when we get there. Sense of what Kevin Warsh and the gang at the Fed are thinking about this economy and how they would like to handle it. As we sit here today, though, while Warsh is not exactly an enigma, he's also not exactly the most talkative chairman the Fed's ever had. So we're going to do a little preview of what might be coming tomorrow and what it might mean. And we're going to do that with Claudia Sahm. She's the chief economist at New Century Advisors. Also, once upon a time, she spent more than a decade working at the central bank.
Go straight on.
Claudia, welcome to the program. Good to have you on.
Great to be here today.
Seems to me that the first thing we ought to talk about, obviously, when talking about the Fed, is inflation these days. What do we know about how Chairman Warsh measures and thinks about inflation?
We know that Chair Warsh thinks inflation is too high. We don't know as much about exactly how he measures it or exactly what he thinks behind it, but he has been unequivocal that inflation is too high and that he will get it down.
Yeah, but he's got this thing he likes to talk about, this trimmed mean, which we've gone over on this program in the past, which is different than actual, PCE, Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, as we've talked about a zillion times on this program. But it does sort of narrow the range of, number one, prices, and number two, outcomes that the chairman's looking at.
When Chair Warsh has talked about inflation, and particularly this discussion of the trimmed mean or trimmed averages, it really fits in a discussion of where is inflation headed. And sometimes to get a better picture of where inflation is headed, you might want to take out some of the outliers, right? And the trimmed mean or core inflation, taking out food and energy, that can take out some outliers. That does not mean that is the target. Like what the Fed is really trying to do is get overall inflation down. Everything counts. Kevin Warsh mentioned the trimmed averages in his confirmation hearing, but then in his congressional testimony in recent weeks, he said, well, I don't mean the Dallas Fed PCE trimmed mean. I don't have a preferred measure. So we're kind of back to the drawing board on exactly what Kevin Warsh is looking at when he talks about inflation.
So what does that make you think? You've studied the Fed for a long time. You've worked at the Fed. You are a trained observer here. What is that? What do you take from that?
It makes me uncomfortable. There's a catchphrase about the Fed that they're data-driven, and I think that really is important. You need to have the yardstick that measures success, and you need to really follow the data. And so the fact that I don't have a good sense of how Kevin Warsh thinks about the data, what he's looking at, it's a little unsettling. And it may just be he doesn't want to share it because he doesn't want to bias all of us to just look at one measure and not look at all the measures. But it's an uneasy feeling. And if nothing else, it's an unfamiliar feeling. I'm used to listening to Fed chairs talk a lot about the data in great detail, and that's not his approach.
What do you make of the reaction that people are having to the chairman's decision not to do the whole forward guidance thing, right? There's been some commentary out there about, it's going to increase volatility. There's been others saying, this is fine. We can deal with this. We'll just react to what the data says. What do you make of it?
It is a change. We have a leadership change at the Fed. It's important to understand the new leader. I think it gets a little blown out of proportion, right? We don't, at this moment, we don't need the Fed holding markets' hands. Unfortunately, Kevin Warsh has seemed to lump that takeaway forward guidance into taking away the reaction function. What is really helpful is to know what are the contingency plans? What would it take for the Fed to raise rates? What data are you looking at? How are you evaluating? What's your time scale? it's still come out from the Fed. We're getting in some of the committee documents, like the minutes. But it sure would be nice to hear the Fed chair say it. But I don't think we'll hear that from him. That is not a path he wants to go down right now.
Yeah, no. I will say you sound pretty calm. You're vigilant, but you sound like you're okay with what's happening.
By and large, we're in a pretty good place. I'm trying to keep things in perspective. Pay attention to the changes happening at the Fed. I'm skeptical about a lot of the changes. I'm watching very closely. But no one should pretend the Fed was perfect before Kevin Warsh came in. So I'm trying to keep a balanced view of all this, and very thankful that we're not in a crisis situation in the economy. It's great to have these kind of more intellectual debates about how the Fed does its work, as opposed to some big problem that we're trying to get through.
Claudia Sahm, longtime Fed watcher, also used to be a longtime Fed employee, now chief economist at New Century Advisors. Claudia, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep running.
So here's a data point. More than 1 out of every 5 companies in this economy use artificial intelligence in their daily operations. Goldman Sachs did the analysis, the federal government provided the raw data. The theory, of course, and in some cases the reality, is that AI brings with it the promise of higher productivity and higher profits. But even as AI becomes increasingly capable, it's also a reality that AI is fundamentally unpredictable, which in turn creates liabilities for those companies that are using it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a business opportunity. Deloitte figures globally, AI insurance is going to be a $5 billion business by 2032. Marketplace's Megan McCarty-Carino has that one.
At Corgi Cafe in San Francisco's financial district, you unfortunately won't find any corgi dogs. That violates the health code, apparently. But you will find plenty of startup founders, like Eamon Halou, who's been working from the cafe with his laptop and a couple buddies.
We have like 5 to 6 businesses, all very successful.
He won't go into much detail about what they all do exactly. Someone might steal his ideas. But there's a ski app, sports betting analysis, Reddit marketing, all powered by AI.
So it's like you do a lot of work in the beginning, and then you can kind of step away while it's making revenue.
Corgi has built its business to serve this new generation of AI native entrepreneurs, says CEO Nico Lacqua. Partially with protein shakes and espresso shots.
We don't have decaf for a reason. I think people do need it locked in a little bit.
But the real business and the namesake Corgi are in the office upstairs. The cafe space just came with the lease and turned into a fun side project.
We're best known for our insurance for technology companies.
That includes all the usual policies and a new product for AI liability.
Just like a human might mess up, AI might mess up even worse, or it might say things that it shouldn't say, it might calculate things it shouldn't calculate, it might even cause outages or things like that.
Corgi's policy explicitly covers damages that could result from these AI mistakes. It's something the wider industry has only started to grapple with, says John Farley, who leads cyber practice at the insurance brokerage Gallagher.
The insurance market is beginning to move from silence on AI to scrutiny of AI.
He says most traditional policies simply don't mention AI, but the insurance industry has begun standardizing language and seeking regulatory approvals to potentially exclude AI from their plans. The challenge, he says, is figuring out how big of a risk AI poses for businesses.
Historically, the insurance markets have used modeling tools rather than measure the likelihood of, say, a hurricane in Florida, right? We've got lots of data there. Here, not so much.
How do you know if a brand new agentic AI system your company uses to process invoices is likely to make a costly mistake? That's what Inez Butemaja is trying to quantify with her AI insurance startup Claimy.
When we onboard a customer, what we actually do is we test their AI agents. We try and actually trigger the potential errors that would lead to a claim.
Like leaking sensitive customer data.
We had the agent in under like 10 minutes give you information about the previous customer they talked with, their age, their personal information.
Agents that fail can be improved and tested again. The better the score, the lower the insurance premium.
We pride ourselves of being, the enabler of technology adoption. It's like there wouldn't be any skyscrapers in New York if you didn't have the proper insurance for it.
From building skyscrapers to empires of AI apps, innovation creates new risk. And for insurers, an opportunity to sell new products. That and 24/7 coffee. In San Francisco, I'm Megan McCarty-Carino for Marketplace.
UPS reported quarterly profits this morning, better than analysts had been guessing is the TLDR. UPS managed to do it, even while it continues to wind down what had been a big part of its business, delivering packages for Amazon. The company's CEO said on the earnings call today that they had, and this is a quote, eliminated approximately 2 million pieces per day of lower quality Amazon volume. First of all, ouch.
Go straight on.
Also, though, UPS isn't the first big shipper to move away from Amazon deliveries. FedEx did it back in 2019. Marketplace's Henriette had it.
Before e-commerce became a big thing, UPS and FedEx made a lot of their money delivering packages to businesses rather than households because they make a higher profit margin on those business deliveries, says Lisa Elram, a professor of supply chain management at Miami University.
Because if you're going to businesses, there's a much higher probability that you're delivering multiple packages.
And businesses tend to be clumped together. A UPS driver, for example, could go to an industrial park and make a bunch of stops.
Whereas you're driving off in neighborhoods, particularly rural neighborhoods, it starts getting to be very, very expensive.
But as we started to order more stuff online, UPS and FedEx saw a new opportunity, says Zach Rogers, an associate professor of supply chain management at Colorado State University.
For them, Amazon was always a volume. You're delivering a lot of packages at low margin, but high enough volume that it's all right.
Then, about a decade ago, Amazon wanted more control, so it started to build its own delivery system. That left fewer Amazon packages for the UPSs and FedExes of the world. So those companies are increasingly getting out of the business of delivering you, say, a package of socks, and into the business of shipping really valuable stuff, for which they can charge more.
What do you pay more for? Pharmaceuticals or a package of socks? And so if they're taking up the same amount of space on the truck, it's really just the bang for the buck is higher with things like healthcare products.
So UPS is moving from a high volume business to a high margin business, says Jason Miller, a supply chain management professor at Michigan State.
You're not necessarily worried about maximizing the amount of stuff you're moving. You're worried about essentially maximizing the profit you can make off of the stuff that you do move.
And right now there's profit to be made, especially by shipping computer gear from Asia to the U.S. for data centers. I'm Henriette, Marketplace.
Down 55 points, about 0.2%, 24,876. S&P 500 crept up 15 points, about 0.2%, 74 and 28. United Parcel Service, Henriette was just talking about this, down 6.5%. FedEx picked up about 0.6%. Bond prices went up. The yield on the 10-year T-note down 0.60% on the 10-year. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by Solidigm, offering solid-state storage solutions optimized for AI with higher capacities, greater speed, and energy efficiency. Solidigm, AI data infrastructure built on a solid foundation. Learn more at storageforai.com.
Get ready to turn left.
Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table.
Turn left.
We think that one of the very best ways to understand people better is to learn what they cook and how they eat. So every week, we introduce you to fascinating people from around the globe to share their stories, their expertise, and their food. From a culinary tour in Dubai to a Nigerian chef who does pop-up dinners in Philadelphia, and all things in between. Join our conversation. The Splendid Table from 8 p.m. American Public Media.
Sundays at noon on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Alley Theater, continuing its Summer Chills tradition for Houston theater goers with The Girl on the Train, playing now through August 30th. Tickets at alleytheater.org.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston System, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Resdahl. President Trump was in Michigan this week, stumping for Republicans and talking up his second-term economic policies, which, he said, have brought manufacturing jobs back to that state, still, as you know, of the American auto industry. Those policies, of course, have included, at times, steep tariffs on Canada and Mexico, both of which are critical links in Detroit's supply chain. The claim from the White House is that tariffs and the rest of the Trump trade agenda are going to drive a reshoring boom in manufacturing and in factory jobs. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman has more now on how that's working out.
Since President Trump started his second term in January 2025, the economy has lost 75,000 manufacturing jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a 0.6% decline.
Manufacturing has not revived to a significant degree.
It's a trend that started in the 80s, says Mark Zandi at Moody's Analytics.
The job losses continue. Tariffs and other policies that have been put in place have not reversed that.
But tariffs may still be helping U.S. manufacturers, says economist Laura Veldkamp at Columbia Business School.
It made it more profitable for American manufacturers to set up and produce here.
That's because tariffs on imports diminish the competitive advantage of using lower-cost labor in places like Mexico or Malaysia. So we're making more in the U.S. now.
Manufacturing output's gone up 1.1% over the last year.
But we're doing more with fewer people, as Mark Zandi explains.
Manufacturing activity is very mechanized, automated. So even if you see a pickup in output, and we've seen that particularly in the tech sector and the defense, aerospace industries, it doesn't translate into jobs because, these factories just don't employ a lot of people.
Now, the story's a little different in the crucial U.S. auto industry, where employment's down more than 2.5% since January 2025. One big problem, says Ned Hill at the Ohio State University's Manufacturing Institute, demand for new vehicles has been weak because many consumers can't afford them.
The average price has been bouncing just under $50,000. You have to be solidly above the middle of the income distribution to buy an average car.
Looking forward, though, says David Whiston at Morningstar,
some of these jobs may come back. There are some automakers looking to onshore production to the United States, and then that can create jobs for auto suppliers.
He points to recent plans announced by GM in Kansas and Tennessee and Toyota in Texas. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
And with it, what the central bank is going to do on interest rates. And while we're all going to feel whatever changes they make or don't make in one way or another, if you're a would-be home buyer, I'm going to bet you'd be very interested what happens tomorrow. So we've called Vivian Geller. She's the Chief Financial Officer at Pacific Trust Group. That's a mortgage lender here in Los Angeles. Vivian, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Kai. It's always nice to be back.
I'm going to throw a number at you here. I want you to give me your reaction. 6.58%. That's what Freddie Mac says the 30-year fixed average rate is. Discuss, please.
Okay, we were expecting it to go down, as I had said last year. And of course, you know, this war happened and energy prices skyrocketed across Europe, of course, and a lot of parts of the world. And so here we are with 6.5% rates.
And here we are with you being in the real estate business. Well, I mean, what's that doing to you? It cannot be good, right?
Well, it's certainly not helping, although we are still seeing, you know, the stock market's doing well. So we're seeing, you know, a lot of cash buyers and high-end markets in the second home market. People that have been on the sidelines, they realize that this is probably going to be a while, so they're just jumping off the sidelines and starting to look around a little bit. There's been more inventory this year than there has been in a while.
What I hear you saying is people just got tired of waiting, right?
Yeah, for the most part. There's certainly no anticipation for rates to go down. We know the Federal Reserve is meeting today and tomorrow. I think there's a 62% chance that rates will remain, a small chance that they might go up, but they're not going to come down.
Did you used to have to pay this much attention to the Fed? Sorry, this is just a little sidebar.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, we didn't, especially, you know, prior to 5-6 years ago, certainly prior to COVID. We weren't like sitting here waiting in anticipation to see what's going on.
Right. So crystal ball this for me. You know, if rates stay where they are, and maybe even go up a little bit, you know, game out the next like 6 to 8 months in the housing market. And you know, you're in LA, and so we've got our own issues here. But you know, speak broadly for me if you can.
Well, I mean, nationally, it's at least status quo. Maybe a little dip in the market. I don't think we're going to see a crash. Los Angeles, you know, we have this huge problem with inventory. So we're always going to see the market move here on good houses, well-priced houses. And there's still a question mark, too, about what's going to happen with this war and how that's going to affect our long-term economy.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you something about a topic that we covered a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. And again, as broadly as you can speak, this idea of starter homes. You know, we want people to get into the housing market. It's a great way to build wealth, all of those sorts of things. But the starter home does seem to be becoming a very scarce bird.
Yeah, well, you know, inflation has impacted us nationally significantly, and we haven't seen wages go up to any significant extent. So, you know, how can you buy a starter home when you're just not making enough money? And I mean, it's a really, really scary predicament for a lot of first-time buyers. You know, it's just expensive to go out to dinner, Kai. You know, let alone buy a house or renovate a house or, you know, have your plumbing fixed. If something goes wrong with, you know, your toilet or whatnot, you know, it's really, really, really expensive to own a house right now.
When you are talking to buyers or would-be buyers, what are those conversations like?
Well, you know, I try to be realistic with people and you know, not play games. So we know interest rates are not going to go down anytime soon. So if they've got a decent income and they've got some money set aside, now is a decent time because they're not competing against a million other buyers to buy a house. So if they can afford to buy a house at 6.5% and ride it out maybe 2 years until they can refinance, then they're going to be in a good place. But, you know, if you're really rate sensitive,
get ready to
my suggestion would be to just sit it out for right now.
Vivian Geller at Pacific Trust. Vivian, thanks a bunch.
Right. Thank you, Kai.
Marketplace is supported by Bitwarden Password Manager, built to support secure passwords and access across all devices for every new beginning, from new careers to new places to call home. Learn more at bitwarden.com.
This final note on the way out today, which honestly makes you wonder what we are even doing. Saw this in Fortune. Bear with me. I'm going to rattle off some numbers. Total movie box office for North America last year, almost $9 billion. Recorded music revenue, a record $11.5 billion.
Right.
Live music, another $18.5 billion. Book
Caution,
publishing,
please mind
$14.5 billion. Museums, $16.5 billion. Add it all up,
Turn
all
right.
in, it's about $70 billion. Total sports betting in the United States last year, $166 billion American dollars. Jordan Manges, Anil Maharaj, Janet Nguyen, Olga Oxman, and Virginia K. Smith are the digital team. I'm Guy Risdall. We will see you tomorrow, everybody.
Caution, please mind the speed. Get ready
This
to
is
turn
8 p.m.
left.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with
Turn
your
left.
gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Hello, I'm Ernie Manous. Our show, Hello Houston, is live on the radio on News 88.7 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. weekdays. But we can also give you video access to Hello Houston 24/7. Just head to our YouTube channel for full shows and isolated segments like my interviews with local and national celebrities. It's Hello Houston, giving you full access to our show 24/7 via our YouTube page. So catch up on those missed episodes. For more info, check out the Hello Houston page at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support comes from Blue Cross Blue Shield Global Solutions, providing international health insurance for people traveling, living, or working abroad. Learn more at bcbsglobalsolutions.com. Blue Cross Blue Shield Global Solutions. Blue means go.
This is your NPR station, News 88.7. KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston. Get local and breaking news anytime at houstonpublicmedia.org and listen to us on your favorite devices. Tell your smart speaker to play News 88.7.
I think that there is a very large silent majority of Iranians who don't want the war, but also don't necessarily like the Islamic Republic regime or support it. They feel like their lives and livelihoods are being upended by these radical decisions that the hardliners are making.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's coming up on The Daily from the New York Times.
The Daily is supported by Progressive Insurance, helping protect small businesses with a variety of coverages like general liability, workers' compensation, and commercial auto. More at progressivecommercial.com. For everything you need to know about the most important stories of the day, you're listening to The Daily from the New York Times, distributed by American Public Media. APM produces and distributes programs that entertain and engage audiences everywhere.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Ryland Barton. The Senate has confirmed Jay Clayton to head the nation's intelligence agencies. Clayton is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a former Securities and Exchange Commission chairman. During his confirmation hearing, he refused to say outright that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Some Democrats say they want to investigate President Trump's actions if they win control of Congress during the midterm elections. NPR's Mara Liasson has more on the historical context to Securities and Exchange Commission chairman. During his confirmation hearing, he refused to say outright that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Some Democrats say they want to investigate President Trump's actions if they win control of Congress during the midterm elections. NPR's Mara Liasson has more on the historical context to political scandals and efforts to reform.
If you listen to people who
This is listener-supported K-Bird, KBRD Olympia, KUTI Lacey, K266BM Olympia, and on the internet at kbrd.org.
Stay near to me, we're meant to be always together. Me loving you, you loving me, always together. Right from the start, you have my heart. Keep it.
Apologies for her entire career. But before Lenny was a legend, Patty met him in a record store in 1970 in New York City. This is a guy who, when he was 15, published...
An accident isn't just an accident. It's lost time, lost wages, in a fight you didn't choose. At DeCasa Verde Law, we deliver serious firepower for serious injuries. Together, we win.
BrothersWin.com.
She walk my way, don't you on my stage, I take
All Classical Radio's programming is made possible in part by our sustaining donors. Thank you for your essential support. To become a sustainer, click Donate at allclassical.com.
Commercial decisions for the Men's and Women's World Cup, as well as to other FIFA tournaments like the Club World Cup. And in this new venture, FIFA would partner with a firm called Thrive Eternal, run by Joshua Kushner, the brother of President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Thrive's role would be to bring in new minority investors to this commercial venture, effectively selling a stake to the World Cup and other FIFA tournaments to others. UEFA, though, the body that governs European soccer, strongly opposes the plan, saying, quote, "None of us are the owners of football. It is not FIFA's to sell." Rafael Now, NPR News.
Police are searching for two men they say climbed over the glass wall of Seattle's Space Needle last week, flipped over the edge, and parachuted down from the 605-foot structure. Police say the men put helmets on in a restroom, then ran to jump off. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
It's been 1 year since public radio lost federal funding, and your support matters more than ever. Give now during WRKF's Summer Mini Drive to help keep the news and stories you count on. Give at WRKF.org.
Baton Rouge Ballet Theater's company auditions are set for August 8th. To audition, dancers must have 2 years of point experience and be at least in 6th grade. College-age dancers encouraged. More information at BatonRougeBallet.org.
Keep right, and then turn
From WWNO in New Orleans and WRKF in Baton Rouge, you're listening to Louisiana Considered.
Right.
I'm Sarah Hennigan. On the show today, over 20 years ago, Dr. Kendall McManus Thomas, or Dr. Mac, had his schooling disrupted by Hurricane Katrina. Today, he's assuming a new role as principal at a New Orleans high school. We learn about his journey in education. But first, July is Disability Pride Month, so we are taking time to recognize passionate Louisiana activist April Dunn. Born with both fetal alcohol syndrome and cerebral palsy, Dunn was passionate about increasing educational opportunities for people with disabilities, even advocating for the passage of the April Dunn Act in 2014. She passed passed away early in March of 2020 after testing positive for COVID-19. Pamela White is the Regional Director of Special Education for Geo Academies, and she joins us now for more on April's life, legacy, and improving educational pathways for people with disabilities. Pamela, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
So start by telling us about April's early life. Where was she born and raised? What inspired her activism?
April was born actually here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She was actually adopted early on in her life. April, as you said earlier, was born with disabilities, fetal alcohol syndrome, as well as cerebral palsy. And throughout that, even with those challenges,